Mm-hmm. Can't eat enough. Just had a tortilla chip. Okay, we will reconvene this meeting with a working meeting.
I don't know if you guys kept your PILT worksheets for last year where showed all the requests and where they ended up. So here's the summary total. And I can check it against the actual, so it's everything that has gone through Black Mountain should be reflected on that sheet.
Okay.
Hmm? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Ravendall, I just was curious, I didn't see this part of your agenda today on the original agenda, and now I see it's revised. When was that revised?
Oh, Wednesday,
It was posted Thursday.
posted Thursday, okay.
Okay, I was out of town on Thursday, and so I guess I didn't see when there was a meeting on Friday, and that was posted Thursday, from what I understand.
I don't know when that was posted Wednesday, was it not? Meeting for
Oh.
Friday.
I'm just trying to get caught up,
Tuesday night.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
That one.
Thursday, I think, yeah, Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon for a
Tuesday
Friday
night,
meeting.
it was a training.
Pardon me?
It was Tuesday night, it was a training.
Tuesday night?
Oh, that one, okay.
Thursday. Did you say Tuesday? Thursday.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Thursday. The
Okay.
agenda for Friday was posted on Tuesday.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Just trying to get caught up here, I missed up Tuesday. I guess I missed it. Thank you.
So, we had a couple of things that we kind of talked about for last year's PILT, because we're trying to get the fiscal year closed out. Just kind of wanted to double check and verify when we said freeze budget, and make sure what all that entailed. PILT was gonna help pay for last year's fiscal year, the law library, LexisNexis out for Cory. I wanna verify if that's still a transfer that I need to show in fiscal year 17-18 from PILT. And then for Val's,
Commitments.
involuntary commitments for last year, that amount, how much it was gonna be for sure, and re-verify this year how much it's gonna be, just so I get it in the records right. Because that's not reflected in either one of these, and I've heard different amounts, so I just wanna make sure those are still, so I can keep moving forward.
With the involuntary commitments, that was 15 something, 15.9 or 15.2. If you could, I would suggest just emailing Val and getting that exact number,
Okay, I did pull a report,
okay?
hoping that would help. It put her over that particular part of her budget by $11,129.05.
Okay,
So she had budgeted, spent a total of $13,879.05 for that. And I think most of them were the involuntary commitments. So if you're going by the actual, what she actually spent versus what she had budgeted, it's $13,879.
I would
Over her
suggest
budget.
we do the 13,879, and that way it doesn't hit her cash reserves. And then we had talked about this next year. Val has said that it was a very high year, that it was unusual. So, I think did we compromise down to 6? I think we started at 4, went to 8. Did we land on 6 for next year? And we can do more if we need to, but,
I think that was where we were headed.
okay, so 13,879 for this year, and then 6 into an account like the indigent burial for next year.
Okay, and we did, in working with her, we are creating a separate fund for those involuntary commitments so that it's outside her regular district court budget for that to go into.
Perfect.
So 2180, so that'll show separate from her budget, so it will help there, but it didn't put her into a good light for this year.
Can you also make that fund, not only involuntary commitments, but also the, special expert witnesses? Could you make it like, I don't know, a court fund of some kind? Make it a separate one? Or is that, at this point, if that's an awful lot of work, then we can maybe do it during the year if that's even a possibility?
I had not factored that, I'll have to look.
I was just wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea to start putting a little bit of money away for that. Save it up, you have it there when we need it, rather than
Mm-hmm.
just going back to PILT or looking at the
Yeah, because
budget,
that is a unique one for her too, she doesn't get it very often.
right? And if we could keep it in the same fund, it'd be,
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, I'll look at that, I think we
Okay.
can. I think we just labeled her, just the fund, just district court other. So that would fall in under, keep it general for her. I think we can do that.
we good with
I'll
you?
double check, make sure there's nothing in the bars book that says we can't, but I think we can.
Okay.
Okay. And that's 6,000.
And we can use that money either way, for either for commitments or for special witnesses. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was kinda thinking, let's build it up, and then it's there if we need it, and also as a defined amount. Not that we can't add more to it, but it can't be overspent that way.
Well, and it doesn't impact the rest of our regular budget,
It does, yeah,
for
we kinda
regular.
protect
Yeah,
district court's budget,
because the way the Department of Justice is going, we're gonna end up with a bunch more of them anyway.
right? Okay, thanks Debbie. And yes to the LexisNexis from PILT.
And it was 3,000,
What we were doing was actual,
actual, okay.
whatever that is, 27 or something,
Thought I asked.
okay.
Okay. I didn't make extra copies because I thought you guys still had for this year's requests. Have there been any changes to those, what we have so far from previous meetings and discussions and working? 6,000 to the MCH County Match Grant, Home Health another 6,000. From PILT was the autopsies for 9,500. And nothing for the Meridian Bridge, cause that's gonna be the gas tax fund, correct?
Correct, and it won't be in the budget for at least until at least 2020.
Oh,
So we don't have to worry about it yet. And yeah, gas tax would be a great funding source for that.
okay. And then just a little bit from Northwest Energy and City of Townsend for the extension until they get over here.
I think that
18.
was,
Is that gonna change from what we had
Um,
before?
yeah, well, from what we had in our previous discussion this year,
Uh-huh.
no.
Okay.
It should be, I think, 1916 or something like that for the rest of the year if they move. By the end of
1,800 for
August?
Northwestern and City of Townsend 500. And that we have covered to 1,300 till they move?
Right, roughly, yeah.
Roughly, okay,
I think it's 1900.
okay.
And that'll just cover those until we get moved out of there, right?
Yeah, and then what we said was to help, because she was spending her reserves, because when her salary is based off elected officials, when we got an increase in 2013, she didn't get an increase in her budget to offset that.
Okay.
So what we said is the difference of what we're saving, we would put in her budget with the move over here.
So is that anything special PILT to put into that? Or just not, cause she's over here, she won't have to worry about it?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah, we just won't have it anymore. Just a nice savings.
And then the yearly donation to Food Pantry, Tree Board, and CASA. Food Pantry was 3, Tree Board 2,000, and CASA 1,000. Any changes?
And I think we already voted on that early on.
And was PILT anything for library?
Do we have a budget from them yet?
We did.
Okay. I don't think I've seen it.
Okay.
So I would say no, but we don't know yet where we're at with our mills,
Okay.
as far as where that's
Yeah,
gonna
we
go.
finally did after one of the last ones, and I thought he included you, but, if you didn't get it, he must, okay, I will find it and forward it if he
Okay.
didn't.
Right,
It's kind of like several attempts before he finally. And BCDC just sent theirs. I think I got it Friday,
okay,
to you guys.
yes.
Okay. And then the veterans burial was 8,000 and indigent burials 2,000.
Indigent, I think we should go higher than that. Weren't we doing 4,000 the last
We're
couple of
at
years?
4,000 on this sheet.
4,000, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna do that one for, okay. And the juvenile transport, 6,000. But I think that one had a transport this year, so it's going in as a negative.
How much in the negative?
Somewhere around 4,500-ish.
Did we have any savings? Because we haven't used that fund in a couple of years. Did it build up or did it stay the same?
It stayed the same,
Okay,
it just
So-
kind of went as needed.
so if we're shy, we need to infill the negative with PILT, because that's what we agreed to do. And that's how those funds work.
Transfer
And
the actual,
we
or do a
got-
1,000 more?
I would say the actual for last year, and let's do 4,000 for next year like we have been doing, and hope that we don't need it.
That's for juvenile transport.
Yeah.
And how much was it?
4,000 is what we've been putting in every year, and we spent about 4,500. So what I'm suggesting is we just make it whole from last year, nothing extra, and then put in 4,000 fresh for next year, the fiscal year
Yeah, that
19.
should address it.
Okay. That doesn't include our cost to house a juvenile in Great Falls.
I have a question on that.
And then,
Or I had a question.
Chairman Dozier, I have a question on the juvenile transport. We had one this year and one the previous year that I can recall. I've only had two juvenile transports since I've been county attorney. So I'm wondering how we spent $4,500. Does that does not include the cost of keeping them at the Cascade County facility, or does it?
I think it does, it's all
Oh,
under
it
that
does?
one, I think
oh,
so.
okay.
Okay, then that would make sense. Cause he was there for
I think it includes
10
everything.
days. Say again?
I think it includes everything under that
Okay.
fund. That's why I think I remember it being so much. But I'd have to double check.
So should we
100%
change that to
certain.
juvenile transport and housing?
The fund called it juvenile transport, but it's for the juvenile
Detention.
detention.
Entire thing,
Mhm.
okay.
It's a separate fund.
So I think what we've been doing for the last 10 years is probably a good plan to continue.
We don't get too many. I think this is like the third one I remember being here in 10 years. One year it was like, wasn't it like 10,000 or some big number.
Right, and we had that grant that year, which was canceled by the legislature
Mhm.
this year. That sure helped. That would have been a big hurt.
Okay.
Any other?
And then, we have public safety for a vehicle into their CIP, 20,000. And then their second year donation into the 43-8 Memorial Fund. Any changes?
I think it should say third year donation, because we did it we did 2 last year, like, could be second.
Well, official second, the first year, yeah, was
Right.
just.
It's 100,
Mhm.
because it was 2 years, but yeah, no, that looks good. And I think it's important to continue filling in the vehicle CIP.
And then there was discussion last year, before we knew how valuations were gonna be this year, at PILT covering the reduction in mills that hit us last year, like 5-something, and how it was borrowed for some of the different ones that they float mills, and the value of, came up to like 92,000. Is PILT still gonna cover that, or if they're doing okay, leave it there this year? Or do you guys still would,
What we talked about last year was, using mills to refill those, to make them whole, to the extent that we have mills. And it may be more than 1 year, and then to offset that difference with PILT. So the 92,000 would be the total cost, but if we have extra mills that we could use to infill those, then that reduces what we need to take from PILT. Taking from PILT to infill those is, I think, should be the last resort, not the first resort. So I think when we get to the mills calculations, we'll be able to let you know what that formula should look like.
and then West staff, there was a little bit of shortage last year,
Yeah,
and then this year, in difference between what we were paying Michelle Pugari and Edmonds in the budget. So there'll be shortfall for last year, and we had, Phil was gonna pay for it this year.
well, I think we need to infill that, that was out of our hands, what happened there. That was not a commission event, but I think we have to pay for it. What we talked about was a cost share early on with the
Yeah,
Lee staff for
with
this
each
year.
of
With the frozen budgets, I would like to maybe table that and do it next year, and this year just pay it all out of PILT.
the- okay,
If you're good with that,
yeah.
just alleviates a little bit of stress from some of our department heads. Does that make sense, Debbie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that the payment back on this money we borrowed from then? Is that what you're talking about?
On
Pay-
West staff?
To pay for HR,
Oh, for the HR.
instead of pulling that out of, we talked about charging each department a percentage for
Right.
that.
Right.
Since we froze the budget, we'll just pull that money out of PILT, and then those departments will get hit with that HR charge.
What else, Debbie?
And then the last one that we had last time, we kind of was working on all the stuff through preliminary, was the intercap loan proceeds payoff on the intercap loan. And this last year, we spent $3,030.68, because there was 2 payments.
What's that intercap loan there?
This is all the work that was done on the building that got not built. There was a intercap loan from Department of Commerce on all the pre-work, all the engineering studies, DEQ studies, all that stuff.
You're talking search and rescue building.
The
Right.
new building, yeah,
Right.
that search and rescue, weed, mosquito, everybody that needed space was gonna get thrown into. And then
And
it
that
didn't
was-
happen.
That was the second iteration that you and Nick had voted on that. I voted against it, but it was engineering for the 630,000 smaller building. That we're still paying off on that. That was the engineering cost.
Yeah, I don't understand what you're talking about there. That thing should be paid off. There should never have been that loan to start off with.
You voted for it, not me, for that one. So, how much is left on it, Debbie, do you know, off the top of your head?
Well, the initial reimbursement requests, we had put in 2 amounts. First one was like 29,000, and the second one was another 40,000. I think it's like a total of 100 that we had so many years to pay off with that low interest. Oh, goodness, I can't remember.
If we could get a report on
I
that,
have to get
maybe
a
we
report,
could.
because I don't,
Let's leave
I've
the
lost track.
30-31 for now, if it's good with you guys, and then get a report and decide how to address that long
I thought there was
term.
only about 5,000 pulled out of that air cap.
The first request was 30,000 to start with all the engineering studies, and then it got more involved with checking the water, floodplaining, all that, it got more and more. And then by the time it was voted down, there'd been 2 reimbursement requests sent in, and the county got money off of. But I'll have to go get a report to know the exact amounts.
Just a bunch more thrown away is what it amounts to.
Any more?
Not on the built. I
All
think
right.
that's all the ones I needed for 18-19. And you gave me instructions for 17-18. And then last week in freezing budgets, some things I wanted to clarify. In part of the preliminary process, there were, possible cuts to some of the department hours, increased hours from other departments. And with the freezing, I just wanna make sure I'm clear how all that stands before I proceed with freezing as last year actuals, or are there gonna be some minor tweaks to that? So that I know how to proceed in getting numbers for the final budget.
All right.
Kind of along the line, well, I'll start with the museum. Part of that has to do with the market adjustment. We said spread it out over 3 years. Is that still gonna apply, or does she still, because it was a previous year vote? So this makes it the second of the third year to get, it's like $1 or something to spread it out because she was so far below. Make sure she gets that, or no, if we're freezing.
We already passed as a vote. It was a 3-0 vote, as I recall. So I think we're obligated to continue that, but the museum has a strong enough budget that I don't think the freezing is going to affect them. They also get very few mills, so I don't think it's a big effect on them at all.
I know she'll see and have questions. I wanna make sure.
Yeah, that's, unless you guys wanna, differ with that, but I do think that, again, a promise made is a promise kept. So, that's my opinion.
And along those lines, all other market adjustments that were asked for, increased hours, does that include, well, not market adjustment. We were going to give planning to 40 hours. She's kind of doing that now because of workload. But if you freeze it, in my mind, that's 38 hours, so that's why I want to make sure I'm clear what I need to do. Same thing with district court clerk, make sure. She was at 28, so are we still gonna give her up to the 40 to make sure where it's coming from and how much? Because she's already signed up for insurance and,
Okay, so let's take planning
okay,
first. The workload is significant. She's already come to us with a subdivision. I know she's got others in the works. Her income actually supports the general fund. And she's working on a couple of things right now that are going to help with revenue, but also take more hours. I don't think there's any way we can maintain a planning department, especially with one person at part-time hours. I
but
think
she
the
was
plan-
part-time because the prior cuts when things slowed down,
Right.
so.
Right, now that things are speeding up, I just don't think that we can manage and get things done. And it's less expensive to move her up to 40 than it is to find another secretary. You good with that, with our original plan,
No, not really.
Mike?
What are you talking about, another secretary?
I'm saying it's less expensive to use the workforce we have. So I
Where-
do not want to
Where would we need another
purchase,
secretary?
I just said we don't want another secretary.
I think that since we're funding that with tilt and turn lanes, we're changing the funding on that anyway. And basically it's paying for itself, so I think go ahead and do both.
And Janaea too, stick with that plan, is that both of those, I'm not sure, what are you talking about? Both funding sources for planning?
Well, yeah, cause we're changing that from, we're taking that money from Pilton turn lanes, we're taking that 2.25 mils are coming out of there. And then we're taking that money out of Pilton turn lanes, so we're funding that through economic development. As far as the 4 hours for Janaea, I don't know how we're gonna protect our interests unless we have someone in that position.
How is built money on those turning lanes? How'd Pelton money get involved in that?
We're paying, the money for economic development and planning and commerce are both coming out of Pilt. The turn lanes and whatever the turn lanes don't pay, we're filling it back in with planning money. The money that we got from the turn lanes,
It was about 80,000.
plus whatever else we need to fill these 2.25 mils, that comes out of Pilt. So we're putting those mills back into the general
30,000
system.
roughly.
And I don't think we need the 29 that we were talking about. I think it actually will be less than that. So are we in agreement then, status quo on planning? Just, I would say what's needed versus sticking to the formula, but still taking it from the turn lane, since that was economic development money?
It's a no from me.
Yeah, I still think so.
Okay. And then, for the, for Janaea, I agree with you, especially what we heard from Joe Ramler. I think, if we don't protect Broadwater County, nobody else is going to. She is one of our lowest paid employees, so it is an easy, find. It's about $3,100 for the extra hours. And we can try it for a year, and if it doesn't work, step back next year if you want.
Right back, like I said last time, we put a freeze, then all of a sudden we're putting more money out.
And I don't totally disagree with that, but the thing is that if we wouldn't have the development that the Department of Revenue didn't track, and now we don't have anybody to track our development, so we don't have any way of knowing what we're getting for development. I think that the bottom line is in the future, unless the Department of Revenue and the state get it together, we're gonna end up hiring an appraisal that's gonna be strictly at the county's expense. Cause the deal, if you're gonna try to reassess everything in the county and the state every 2 years, do you think they're gonna come to Broadwater County? Their tax base is in the top 7 counties, they're not gonna come here and look at anything. So we're gonna continually fall behind on this
By
stuff.
statute, I think they have to.
Yeah, they have to, but that doesn't mean they do. I mean, look at the mess that they're in this year. So I don't know, how else are we gonna protect if we don't protect ourselves, who's gonna?
Well, like I said, it goes back in, we put a freeze in, and we're doing this. Of course, we haven't hired this person for a appraisal type thing, but even so, I still, isn't it, Corey, the state, they're required to take care of these revenues from each county, right?
Well, they are, but it's a matter of how well they execute that responsibility. That's what it comes down to. If they're missing stuff, then they're not gonna come out and correct it themselves. I think that to a certain degree, they rely on the complaint process from either individual taxpayers, possibly from counties, to find the squeaky wheel.
Does that help, Debbie?
I have a question
Is
on
it
this
clear?
one.
Okay, Corey.
My question is, if you're asking a current employee who has a totally different job to do this, that's not the job she applied for, it's not the job that she's proved her qualifications for, all that. This position's basically a new position, so I think you need a job description, you need a list of qualifications. And I don't think you can force a current employee to then do a totally different position as part of her duties unless she agrees to it. My recommendation from last week is, what you do is, I recommend you make it a position with qualifications, and then you do an internal advertisement for 4 hours a week. There's other part-time employees in the county that may wanna do it, and may apply for it, may be better qualified. I just have a concern that it's gonna appear to be coercive for her, that she has to take it even if it's not the job she thought she was gonna be doing. And obviously, on top of that, I know there's concerns about, from sanitation, that losing a worker and hours and everything that had previously been approved. So I think there's a cleaner way to do it, but then there's a matter of, I'm concerned that the employee's not gonna have anyone that's advocating for her if this isn't what she wants to do, but she also doesn't wanna, get punished for it.
I don't know that that's not, I don't know that that affects us budget-wise, because we're still gonna fill the position with someone in-house. So I think that budget-wise, we can continue, and we can have, I don't really have a problem with opening that up to somebody else, if someone else, we can get applications from any other part-time, who else do we have part-time? Janaea and Kelsey?
And I think there's a couple over in the sheriff's office that are part-time.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Well, outside of the nurse, but that's more expensive, you would wanna do that, but I thought that there was some in the courthouse that got put down to drop some hours, or they're sharing hours or something, but I'm just curious.
No, just the two. We certainly can address that after the budget if you like.
Okay.
Okay.
We're still making sure, just so I'm clear, Janae's getting at least 32 hours to give her insurance, or she's staying status quo at 28.
Well, if we open this up in-house and choose to hire somebody else, Kelsey, instead, then yeah, Janaea would stay at 28. I think for budget purposes, I'm gonna bring this back around. So, HR, we can bring in Michelle on this if we need to. Janaea's already working for planning. She's taken minutes at the planning meetings. She's been working for sanitation, which is also an arm of planning. In fact, the two used to be one department years ago. Before my time, I understand it was divided up by the previous commission. So what we did is we actually put it to this employee and gave her a week to decide, if she was interested. It's not a change to job description. It's not outside of what she's already been doing. And she's already agreed to it after a week's thinking and having had everything detailed out in writing, and then a lengthy reply also in writing. So I guess for the good of that employee, I would suggest that we move ahead like we had planned and not put her in the limbo of, am I 28 hours, am I 32, do I have insurance, do I not? So that would be my suggestion at this point. I don't know if you guys saw the email response, but so it affects Debbie and whether or not she keeps the hours in general fund or not. And if you'd like to touch base with Michelle instead, that's fine. I think we followed all the correct steps.
Well, I
What do you
think she's trying to keep her hours down, and I think she could be doing more, especially if you guys have more minutes to file, it could easily absorb 4 hours a week, regardless of who she works for. It just makes it easy for me to know how to budget for her with insurance. And then later, we can do amendment after we advertise, however you guys play that out, from wherever we play it out.
Again, going back to testing it for a while, seeing how it works, is that what you're thinking?
Well, if Janae has already said, yes, I'll do some of this, she's the one that matters, I guess. But I know she's relying on the insurance, because she's already put in for a doctor's visit, wondering about cards, so I hate to try to take it away from her, because we said, yeah, we're gonna go for it on that premise, and then suddenly take it away from her.
And we didn't officially give those hours to sanitation, so we're not taking anything away. So Mike, are you good with the status quo on that? Again, it's about $3,100 total for the year,
Is what,
3,100.
And the 4 hours, just give her 32, which makes her eligible for insurance. But she's still part-time, if that makes a difference in her status.
Not the reason for doing it, but it is one of the facts of the additional hours.
no, I would be in support of going with Janae. I mean, we got an email for her that says that she's more than willing to do the work, and she has some ideas on it. Also, she's already working with Nicole and Julie on sanitation and planning, so she has more fingers into what's going on. I think that I'd be okay with just have her, have Janae take that position.
And I agree with revisiting this next year. Let's see how it works, if it worked, and then go from there next year. Does that help, Debbie?
Pretty much, just so I
Okay.
know how to budget and make sure what she's got.
And I think the hours you put together is a good plan.
Because the politics, that's you guys. I'm just the numbers.
Sure.
I have a question on, as a result of this, so Kelsey was just mentioned as a part-time employee, but Kelsey's a full-time employee.
Because the 8 hours she puts for,
Well, so we don't have any other choices then.
Unless Kelsey is now a part-time employee. Is that what you're going to do?
No, I thought you brought that up.
You just mentioned Kelsey as
I thought
a
you
possible
did.
part-time employee.
I thought you brought that up.
Okay, well, I'm just asking the question, is Kelsey remaining a full-time employee, or is she being cut out of my office?
I don't think we'd even got to that, but I
I
hadn't
thought
known
we had
that was a
already brought her up to
discussion.
full-time last year. She was doing
Yeah,
8 hours, and she's already at full-time now. right?
So are you gonna keep her at that?
Yeah.
I hadn't known it was discussed or
Yeah.
thought of to not,
Okay.
so that's news to me.
Because weren't you talking about an additional secretary in addition to Kelsey for some other stuff too?
Well, we were, and that was the 12 hours. In this year's budget, I told you to take that away,
Okay.
but I wasn't, because of the freeze from last week, I'm trying to just figure out where that all lies.
No, I don't see a change
I
in
think we, I
in
don't
that.
think we changed.
Okay.
I didn't change her, so.
Perfect. All right.
And then the other one, we're talking about the maintenance budget possibly having to reduce when his step down to 32. Is that still part, was it looking forward? Does that still apply to him? Moving forward?
I think it has to.
So
I
this is
think his workload, one, has reduced. Two, I'd like to have some peace. So I just don't think there's a way to keep that. That 40, unless you have a brilliant idea, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, this was put into play months ago, actually a year ago.
Those are some of the questions I need to clarify because it makes a difference in my budget.
Sure,
So,
sure. Yeah, I think
I
we're
just wanna make sure.
status quo.
So this year, I sent an email to you that takes our valuations that we were given, which then basically what they give us puts into these forms to determine our tax revenue levies. These are dumbed down all into one sheet for ease of reference. So these individually are all in on that combined sheet.
Did you get us each one of those, Debbie? I don't see one.
I sent an email, I didn't print them.
I did not look at that email. I'm sorry. All right, no, I'll just look off your shoulder if that's okay.
Here's my copy. So what I did is I took this, because that's what this does. Nancy Everson did all the wonderful work of combining them. They're the same. It takes the valuations that we got from Department of Revenue for this year, plugged them into here. And what I did is left the mills that we had the same as last year with a note what the full amount should be for reference. And dumped those in that were the same, that were no change. Ambulance, there was no change. There was no change to public safety. And no change to the weeds. We can't touch that. We talked about giving Val a dedicated mill. I left planning at 0.75, 0 to economic development based on being told the turn lanes and Pelt were gonna cover it. And then left everything else the way they were to come up with the totals. And just for posterity's sake, at this point, I just dumped the extra mills, the few that we gained and left into general fund, just for a baseline of numbers, to see where we sit.
I did see this, I just didn't print it, so thank
Okay.
you for sending that. So,
So you can kind of take a look at it, agree, disagree, do we, take some of those out, put them here? Do you need me to run a report to kind of give an idea of the percentages?
how many
Or tweak
extra,
here.
how many additional mills did we get this year according to your worksheet?
There was a difference between 108.55 and 106.11, it's like 2.55, or 2.44, sorry,
4.
more is all the
Okay.
growth that the general countywide sustained. And then the value from last year was 15,946 to this year it's 16,047. So it's about a $1,400 increase per mill is all.
1,400?
Or 1,400, but between the 15,946 to the 16,047, it's only about 1,400 some increase. So if you add 1,000 to 15 to that to get to here.
Okay.
So it didn't go up a whole lot. I mean, they increased, the mills went up and the value increased, but not significant to do major wonderful things. It's kind of
So did
left
you,
things in hold.
did you by chance figure out how much money we would need, for example, fair? We reduced last year, we took their mills about 0.7.
Mhm.
And this year, they have a little bit extra in the mill value, very little. Did you do any kind of a calculation to see what is needed for fair to bring them up to flat line from last year?
I have not.
Okay.
We needed to make sure with all our budgets to wages, we were sitting, so I could file that as out, so I could go change the revenues to give us a clear picture of where we sit with the freezing and that little increase in value
Sure.
with the current numbers before we made any changes, to know if it's gonna be enough or not enough. I haven't done
So-
that yet.
Okay, so going through these, some of these we can't cut. So the library is a contract with the school. It was voted on by the people, if I'm not mistaken, to create the city or the county school library. So we have to pay our fair share there. So I think we need to put that 0.3 mils back to the library. And then, senior citizen meals and transport, that is part, this would be to you, Mike, Rocky Mountain Development Council does that through the Agency on Aging. That's our match for the federal grant, so it's, we pay a small percentage of the total cost. And you took those back to original, so those are good, all right. Let's see. Weeds is set by statute at 6.66. That's gonna come from the turn lanes. Were we going to also do community development out of the turn lane fund in PILT as well, the 0.75?
Yeah.
Is that an idea you had? Okay.
Out of the Pilt and the turn lane, both economic development and planning, community development come out of. Both those mills come back to the general fund or back into the pool.
Okay.
So that's 2.25 we're picking up there.
Okay, so,
We got mills, but we're still spending that money.
Yeah. I just have a question for Debbie on the, I may have did my mills wrong. What was the increase in the value in the mills again?
Well, I know I gave you the 16047, I think when I did the total, it was only like 1,400 something between last year's value and this year's value. It wasn't much, but I did,
I'm only.
I think I gave you the wrong number, but I called and said I gave you the wrong number and here's the right one.
So they're 16,047.
047.
I think that's the.
Last year was 15,430, right?
It was
16047 minus 15946.
So, yeah, so 16047. Oh, $101, oh, $101? I stand corrected.
Yeah, that's where I just was,
I think we were planning on that 14.
Well,
I think that might be where that came from.
I
I
stand
just-
corrected, it's 101.
yeah,
Thank
when I
you.
redid mine and then you were saying 1,000, I was like, well, I'm way off on my math, but, thank
We
you.
were all hopeful.
Thank you.
Could we get copies of that document that you're working on?
Yeah,
I don't think anyone else has it.
it's gonna change a million times, so before we're all done, it's not set in stone.
Right, but the current one, it would help us to
So
follow
it's just-
along.
Throwing numbers with what the values are countywide as a working document until, so that's why I didn't pass it out, because it's gonna change.
It's just, I can't really follow along if you guys are going line by line on something that we don't have. If you want, I can take it and go make copies right now. Any others that I should copy?
It's just all part of the same one. All, there's a, These are the specials.
That one's a worksheet, the other one?
these are individual official forms between Department of Revenue dumbed down into this.
Okay.
So it's easier to see side by side than flip through 50.
How many copies? Who wants copies? You want one?
If you'd make an extra for me too, Corey, thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any questions not about mills, or do they all hinge on mills? We're kind of in a holding pattern.
Well, the mills are what drive it. It is just a matter of, now it's kind of like last year, we have an idea where we want to go, but if it comes to where museums got 55% and you can only have 33, do they need all those mills? And we have to reevaluate and reprocess and play with those. And that's where, till we get all the right expenditures in, all the right wages in, and kind of come up with a general idea with where the mills are gonna give them, I can't come up with that percent
Sure.
to move forward. And that's where we get down to the wire that makes this time consuming, because that's what affects everybody.
Right.
And now that we got the values, it's, I get to go out the gate, but it's by no means done. I have to have a place to start and direction to go.
Sure, sure.
So that's where I'm seeking today.
I would guess, and this may be optimistic, I'm gonna touch base with Julie Dooling about coming to see us, but with the amount of articles about this all over the state, with the amount of counties and the hit that they've taken all over the state, I would think that the legislature will have to address two things. One is the justice reform, and two is the tax debacle. When I talked to Department of Revenue last week, they were having a meeting about this. Now, can they do anything about it right now? No, but they've had a slew of phone calls. Commerce is all over this. Governor's office is all over this. And MBAC sent us a great spreadsheet that shows the effect on every county. So that'll be something good to look at. I think, were you included in that? I think it was sent to, maybe not, I'll forward it to you. Yeah, it'll be interesting to look at. But, you know, something's gotta give, because the state can't do this. They did, but it's not working. With the airport, did you get a budget from them?
Mike gave me his verbal, same as last year. It's all he's,
Okay, good. So airport, what I would suggest is we look at what their, and I think we have it, what their expenditures are and match it, because we've got a lot of money saved for the runway project. We might have a new grant for the runway project. Maybe this year we can go ahead and just make them equal with their expenditures, which are pretty low. They have been putting their extra in a CIP for that runway project. That will give us a couple more mills, or pretense of mills, to work with. If that's good with you, I don't know what the number is yet. We'll have our worksheet here in just a second.
So they have 0.12 mils.
and that's because we borrowed from him last year, trying to offset the decreased numbers of mills to make the budget balance.
Before then, it was 8,
0.8,
wasn't it?
0.8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that gives us a 0.5 off the top.
And when I was working on their budget, they rely a lot on the fuel sales. That's why the fly-in and different things they do are important, because it generates extra revenue in the sales, and because they can sell it at a lower rate, or a higher rate, but pay a lower rate when they fill, they make money on it. And so I know when I was working on their budget last year, because they didn't have a whole lot of expenses for their maintenance crew, the mowing and things, they hadn't hardly touched, and they had decent reserves going, cash reserves going into the year,
And don't they have,
because they're working on that runway.
don't they have another, 2 more hangars out there?
And then the hangar rent helped too, as revenue. When I was working on budget amendments, they were sitting pretty strong. Plus the grants that helps them with some of that stuff too. Just that it'd be nice when they get the runway done.
Is this the money that they have on hold in case somebody retires? In the fund operating?
That was a transfer out, I believe that's, they're over their 33%, or how, what they say they want to transfer to their CIP for their runway stuff,
Okay,
so it's an out.
okay, so
So it's like their extra sales and revenue.
this we wouldn't need because it's for the runway project, that's done, so that's why that's so much lower.
Mhm. See, when we,
So-
see, this is what we budgeted, but then they spent to get the runway done, so that's where Mike, cause now that we're done, he said we don't need all that.
Sure,
So, of course, Mike,
I'm just trying to
He's
figure out where they're at, what their needs are.
relying on
not
us
what
to
their
help
wants
them,
are.
yeah.
Right,
As far as the budget numbers, he looks at, says how much we can spend to pay for something, and that's as far as he goes.
okay,
Totally different than working with Ernie or Bob, but,
that's all right.
that's what his verbal was. Cause I asked him when he come in to get bills, what he wanted to do, and pretty much status quo, cause he didn't have any clue,
Sure,
so I'm kinda helping him do that.
So by these figures that we got right now, we should have 4.69 mils above what available above from what we had last year.
4.69?
We got 2.44 an increase in mills,
Mm-hmm,
and we got 2.25 that came out of economic development planning, so that's what we have excess right now is 4.69 mils.
mm-hmm.
And we're gonna take one of those and go to district court, right?
If we can. No promises were made, but I told Val we would try, and, 246. So I took that to Debbie, and that's why it's a part of the conversation. Is this,
That's your copy.
oh, thank you. So Debbie, what do you think the airport needs in the way of mills this year?
And we know the runway's done, so we're not saving for, or needing to save for that anymore, right? Is that my understanding?
Right, there's not, another piece that needs to be done, of the runway. So I think we did the main area, but now we need
Four
to do,
hundred thousand of it,
right.
okay,
And Bill's gonna write a grant for us on that.
okay.
The stuff that we got done was basically a chip seal, crack seal, right?
I think so, yeah.
That,
But
it was
there's,
supposed to be a redone, that's why we were saving the $4 million, because we had to match the federal. And it was a $400 million project. So what all the different airports do around the state is they loan each other money as they get it. Over a 10-year period, you're supposed to actually have that put together in order to pay for a new runway. And this was supposed to be the year for that. And I think that was done, or at least on the docket to be done.
okay.
And I think that's why some of it shows they spent like 880,000 or more,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, how much? And if they're not done, that's what I don't know, if they're not done, what's the next piece of the puzzle, their step is?
I think that's the grant.
That's
It's
what,
gonna
well,
fund that.
that's what they're saving for, but you still have to get the grant.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Chip seal, that was just to keep holding it together, basically.
Oh, until we get to the new,
You're right.
runway.
They chip sealed a couple of years ago, and they did a whole repair of the cracks. This was not that many years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. They went through and they sealed in all the cracks. They did an overlay, it's not a chip seal, but they did an overlay, and the engineer came back and said, this is your last time. And that's when they said, okay, so this will be the year, worked with FAA on that.
Oh, okay.
So that's where we've been with that. And that's why their budget shows that they're not keeping that money, but they spent that money on the project. So I was just wondering if we could whittle a few extras out of that. So you're 468, let's skip airport for a minute. your 468 comes from where?